Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is now on U.S. soil facing federal charges. The indictment alleges a 25-year conspiracy accusing him of flooding the United States with cocaine and corrupting his own country. ABC's Lionel Moise has the details.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife are now in New York after being captured by U.S. forces. Landing earlier today at Stewart Airport in Orange County, New York, escorted off the plane by more than a dozen federal agents. In New York, NYPD blocking off streets as a heavy security motorcade carrying Maduro made its way to the Manhattan Detention Center where he will be processed. President Trump announcing his capture early this morning, posting this picture showing the Venezuelan leader in U.S. custody. According to two sources, the military operation was carried out by the Army's Delta Force after the CIA identified the leader's precise location.
In total, more than 150 aircraft, bombers, fighters, intelligence, reconnaissance, surveillance, rotary wing were in the air last night.
The president now saying the U.S. will run Venezuela until there can be a transition of power, and also says he has not ruled out boots on the ground.
Are you saying that Secretary Hegseth and Rubio are going to be running Venezuela, and will you be sending in U.S. military troops to provide?
Team that's working with the people of Venezuela to make sure that we have Venezuela right. Because for us to just leave, who's going to take over? I mean, there is nobody to take over.
Venezuela's vice president demanding the immediate release of Maduro and his wife, saying Venezuela has a duty to safeguard its sovereignty that has been attacked. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Congress was not notified prior to the mission, saying doing so would have, quote, endangered the mission. On Capitol Hill tonight, at least 4 House Republicans releasing statements criticizing this military operation in Venezuela. Democrat leaders in both the House and Senate are calling for an immediate briefing for the Gang of Eight and a full briefing for all members of Congress next week. Lionel Moise, ABC News, New York.
And right now, Virginia lawmakers are speaking out after the latest U.S. strike in Venezuela. Layla Cox has more.
While some Virginia lawmakers like Governor Glenn Youngkin and Congresswoman Jen Kiggans voiced their support to the U.S. strike, others, including Senator Mark Warner and Congressman Bobby Scott, are sounding the alarm about President Trump's use of military force. President Trump says the U.S. government will indefinitely run Venezuela and use their oil reserves to sell to other countries. This comes after an extensive U.S. operation to successfully capture Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro and his wife. Saturday's attack marks a major development in the Trump administration's pressures on the South American country. After months of U.S. strikes on boats officials say were smuggling drugs to America. 13 News Now political analyst Leslie Coggle says the uncertainty of what's to come could lead to global tensions.
These events don't really comport with what the Trump administration campaigned on, which includes the idea of not involving ourselves in foreign wars.
Since the attack, several of Virginia's leaders are responding. In a social media post, Governor Glenn Youngkin praised President Trump over the move. Senator Tim Kaine criticized the president's efforts to expand what he says is unauthorized military force.
We've seen this president initiate unilateral action against Iran, against terrorist groups within Nigeria, and now against Venezuela, as well as against boats in international waters without seeking congressional approval.
While protests across the U.S. condemn war in Venezuela, in other countries like Lima, Venezuelans are celebrating. President Chalita, with Virginia-based Venezuelan advocacy group Ven Conmigo, says although Venezuelans are excited Maduro is no longer in power, a peaceful transition is necessary to ensure democracy.
We need to be careful with this. This now is the time for celebration. Everybody's happy for Maduro is in the jail, and this part is very good. But the freedom is coming, and we need to be organized.
President Chalita says Venezuelans in the U.S. and in their home nation have to be cautious as events play out. Coggle also sends a message of hope and comfort to the military families right here in the Commonwealth whose loved ones are deployed in the South American country. Layla Cox, 13 News Now.
Maduro was transferred to New York after being captured and brought aboard USS Iwo Jima. The assault ship was in the Caribbean and South America after deploying from Naval Station Norfolk back in August. And retired Navy Rear Admiral Michael Smith is reacting to the recent moves in Venezuela. Smith is also the founder of National Security Leaders for America, a group of more than 1,400 national security professionals. Now, Smith tells 13 News Now the servicemen and women who carried out their mission in Venezuela need to be commended. He says that they were given a tough mission and were successful in carrying out their tactical operations. But Smith's pause at the plan comes with how the action is going to be viewed by other countries. Smith adds this type of regime change could give countries like China the permission to act in the same way. Moving forward, Smith hopes the president is able to think of what impact this action can have long term.
There's just a lot of potential long-term danger, especially when the president himself says he's not too concerned about troops on the ground. You know, I thought we were getting away from these endless wars. I thought we were done with regime change. And so my concern is more, can this be drawn out?
Smith says there's also a possibility troops on the ground in Venezuela could face rebel forces in the fallout of a regime change. He hopes whatever happens moving forward, it won't require more U.S. troops being called in.